Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Furrow, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
So, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Cloud Career Q&A session from us at Go Cloud Careers. My name is Chris Johnson. I am the Chief Operating Officer, joined by Alonzo Coleman, our Chief Marketing Officer, and Mike Gibbs, our founder and CEO. And we are here to answer any and all of your questions as it relates to your cloud career. cloud career development, cloud career training. Whether you want to be a cloud architect or a cloud engineer or DevOps, or you don't know what you want to be and you're just trying to figure it out, that's what we're here for. So any questions you might have about the cloud architect career, the cloud engineer career, cloud architect training, cloud engineer training, cloud architect career development paths, and so on, this is the place for you to ask. We are here, right now to answer your questions. We set aside our time once a week to come here on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitch and Twitter, essentially everywhere that people can find us, to try and answer your questions, to help you reach your goals as quickly as possible. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer your questions, but we can't help you if you don't ask questions. So make sure you ask us your questions. Put your questions in the chat box or in the comment section, depending on what platform you're on. Because we can't answer questions if we don't get questions. Well, I mean, we could talk all day long, but we like to do that on Tuesday nights on our Head in the Cloud web show. That's where we go talk about whatever it is that we want to talk about. But today, on Mondays, we want to talk about what you want to talk about as it relates to your cloud career. So make sure to put those questions in the chat box. So while we're waiting on some questions to come in, let us know where you're from. Unless you want to put the question in there first. You can put the question first and then let us know where you're from. But while we're waiting, I want to we'll let Mike say a few words and then Alonzo say a few words. And then I want to tell everybody about a few things. I got some exciting things to tell you about in case you didn't see it in the countdown. So Mike, what's going on?
Well, first, welcome everyone. How are you today? And happy Monday. And the reason we're here is we want you to have the fast track to success. You know, every day I hear what scares me more than anything when people say failure is a great way to learn. Failure is the worst way to learn. The best way to learn is not to make mistakes in the first place and ask somebody that's already been successful and done it. And that's why we're here. You know, when I started my tech career as an architect 25 years ago, I did something very different. I reached out to our organization's VP and said, what is the perfect network architect? And he gave me a list of things. And it surprised me because they weren't what I thought they were. So I followed the instructions that the VP gave me. Within 2 years, I was a principal architect. The people that I worked with took 10, 15 years to become an architect, and I was already a principal and architect, and I didn't come from tech. I didn't have degrees in tech. I had degrees in internal medicine, business, and other cool things, and that's the point. When you get access to the right information, it's like jumping on a rocket ship. It can fast track your success. And you can't just ask anybody for information. You know, I love it. The kid that got their first job is trying to promote how to get a job, but they don't even know how they got it because they've not been successful yet. The person that's new to their career is out there trying to tell people on YouTube and LinkedIn what to do. Here's the secret. If you want to be a great at anything, ask someone that's already been successful, a principal architect, a VP of architecture, someone that's there. And that's why we're here. People reach out to me every day for mentoring, and I love doing it. Unfortunately, when they try to book a call with me, even at $1,200 an hour, it's a 17-week wait to get a call. So I'm here completely free, twice per week, once on YouTube Live and once in our webinar. And that's so you can ask us your questions and we can help you shave years of mistakes off of getting to your goals. I don't want you to be average architects. I don't want you to be average technology professionals. I want you to be the elite, that 1 or 2% that can get any job they want, that earns $100,000 or $200,000 more than the competition. And I can show you jobs which have a $300,000 pay range, and I want you to get it all. So you want to learn how to become an architect? Ask. You want to learn how to get promoted in your architecture career? Ask. Do you want to learn how to earn more in tech? Ask. And that's why we're here, to fast track your career success. I love helping people. Almost every day I get somebody hired as a new architect, regardless of their background, and I want to help you regardless of whether you're a student or not. So pile in the questions so we can help you. Over to you, Alonzo.
Well, definitely. Thanks so much, Mike and Chris. It is always a pleasure to have everyone from around the world sit here and listen to the experience that we have about becoming a cloud architect. And I see everyone from Florida, where Chris is, to Kenya, all the way on the other side of the world, in Bristol, English, South Africa. The list goes on and on. So we are thankful for everything. So Mike said it best. It is better to learn from those who have done it, been there, done that, instead of figuring it out for your own, for your own sake, from a slow, very erratic, trying to grab from what everybody thinks should be a cloud architect. So please bring your questions in. We are here to help you, and we want you to get to the quickest, to become a cloud architect from the with the shortest path possible. I can't talk today. Shortest path possible. I guess this must be Monday mouth thing. I don't know what it is, but overall, I am glad to have everyone here. Let's get your questions answered, and let's rock and roll.
All right. And as Alonzo mentioned, I am here in Florida. And just so everybody is aware, I might be leaving early today because I am in Florida without air conditioning. And this fan up here is only doing so much. So I might have to leave early to just go somewhere. Go down to the convenience store and walk into the cooler. Who knows? But I will stay as long as I can withstand it. We started off at 78 degrees, and now it is at 81 degrees. So we'll see how this goes. But let me tell you all about a few things, and then we've already got a couple of questions I'm ready to get to. So first of all, I want to tell everybody, and if you're one of our students, you already know about this, but we've now released it to the public. We are having a Go Cloud Careers Summit in Orlando, Florida, October 13th through the 15th. This is going to be a live in-person conference. It's going to have the likes of me, Mike, Alonzo. It's going to have Jermaine Houghton, who is an enterprise architect at Southern New Hampshire University. It's going to have Reggie Bonifant, who is a world-class athlete and NFL running back. It's going to have Dr. Johnson and Dr. Cooper Johnson and Dr. Jamie Long, professors of management from the University of Tennessee system. This is going to be an amazing conference. It's going to be an amazing opportunity to, as we say, improve your career and improve your life performance. We're going to be focusing on some amazing topics. So make sure to check out that link if you're interested. That has just been put in the chat box. That will take you to the registration page, but more importantly, the information page, so that you can see everything that's going to be covered there and see if that's something that you might be interested in. So take a look at that. We're really excited about that and are excited to share that with the public. So the next thing I want to tell everybody about is our free How to Get the First Cloud Architect Job Guide. This is a completely free resource for anyone that is interested in becoming a cloud architect or solution architect. This is a great starting point if you want to know what to do. I believe it's probably about 20 pages worth of content, covering everything from what type of experience matters to what hiring managers are looking for to what you actually need to know to be a cloud architect, the skills that are necessary, the knowledge that is necessary. So if this is something that you're interested in, the cloud architect or solution architect role, get that free resource. It's completely free to you. Just go in there, register, and you'll get the document in your email within just a few minutes. A great free resource for the community. Another free resource, the Why Tech Skills Aren't Enough. Now, this is very important, and this has been something that has progressively gotten more important over the years. It used to be back in the golden age, or the old age, excuse me, the stone age, whatever we want to call it, the 90s, the 80s and the 90s. If you had the tech, you were golden. You were set. But now the tech is more reliable. The tech, for the most part, works. And now knowing the tech isn't enough to be in a successful, elite, high-paying career. So if you want those high-paying roles, if you want to be the best and you're in the role that you desire, whether it's a cloud architect or a cloud engineer, or even more technical roles like software developers or DevOps engineers, you need to find out what's going to set you apart from everybody else. And that's what's covered in this Why Tech Skills Aren't Enough guide. So make sure you get that. That's another free resource. We've got plenty of free resources, but I'm only going to, I don't want to inundate you with all of them. If you're interested, you can look at the description of this video and you can see all of our free resources there. So take advantage of those. The first two are the two that we think are the most prescient as of right now. So that's why I mentioned them. So Thank you all for allowing me that opportunity, and thank you, Tyrone, for putting those links in the chat box. Let's get to some of these questions. There were 2 good questions I saw before I started talking, and let's go. They came in at the same time, so here we go. From LinkedIn, in Austin, Texas, what is the difference between platform cloud architect and solution architect?
Omar, so I'm going to get rid of the term platform cloud architect because platform is what I like to call a garbage bag term, which could be used for absolutely anything. It could be used for network infrastructure. It could be taken out of the context of enterprise architecture. So let's talk about a cloud architect versus a solution architect. Very simple. A solution architect works for a cloud provider. If they don't work for a cloud provider, they are not a solution architect, regardless of what they try to tell you they were. A solution architect works for a company and designs, presents, and sells their stuff. So Sharon Williams Paint used to have solution architects that would come up with the solution of the color of paint for your house. AT&T Wireless used to have sales reps called solution architects, and they would help you pick out your cell phone plan. AWS has solutions architects that help you pick out only AWS stuff, and if you happen to be on Azure, Google, you're out of luck. And if you're one of 98% of organizations that are multi-cloud, a solution architect doesn't know what to do. So a solution architect designs, presents, and sells a solution to improve an organization's performance on a single vendor's technology. So a Cisco solution architect sells Cisco stuff and designs, presents, and sells Cisco stuff. A network architect, by comparison, designs an entire network. And it might use some Cisco gear, it might use some Arista gear, it might use some Huawei gear, it might use some Juniper gear. And it's the same thing with a cloud architect. A cloud architect is everything. The public cloud, the private cloud, the hybrid cloud, the multi-cloud, the hybrid multi-cloud, whatever. That's a cloud architect. All clouds, whatever it takes to make your customer successful. Versus a solution architect that says, here, I got this great stuff. I can stick all your eggs in one basket on a single cloud. And when that cloud provider gets hacked, has a network failure, for example, the cloud's down and their customers are hosed. Meaning their businesses may not operate. And if it's a single cloud solution, say on just AWS, and AWS has a network outage or a power failure or whatever they have, which causes their whole global network to go down, and it's a hospital that put all their eggs in one basket, people are going to die. An emergency service system where you dial 911 in the US or 999 in the UK to get an ambulance to come when someone has a heart attack, for example, if it's on a single cloud and that cloud's down, people die. If you're dealing with a bank where 1 minute of downtime costs $10 million and it's on a single cloud, when that cloud goes down and has a hiccup, millions of dollars are going to be lost. So 98% of organizations and jobs at this point are cloud architects and not solution architects. And a cloud architect will design your systems on as many clouds as it takes to make their customers successful. OpenStack Cloud, Nutanix Cloud, Google Cloud, Azure Cloud, AWS Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, Dell Cloud, it doesn't matter. All the clouds are the same thing. They're just somebody else's network in a data center where they rent you space in it. And once you strip off all these silly, ridiculous marketing names that the cloud providers pay millions of dollars to people to come up with words like Elastic Compute Cloud or Amazon Simple Storage Solution, it's the same silly virtual machine in all clouds that VMware invented in 1999, that AWS calls an EC2 instance, that Azure calls an Azure virtual machine, that Google calls a compute engine instance, same piece of tech. So kind of keep it that way. All the same thing. A cloud's like going to the grocery store. They're all the same, only the names have changed. Great question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's see here. From Mafusar, I'm a little bit confused on the role of cloud architect versus an account exec role from business acumen perspective. I'd like to know the delineating factors of roles and responsibilities.
Okay, and that's actually a really good question because a really elite cloud architect has a lot of account executive skills, but different roles and responsibilities. When it comes to actually designing an architecture, whether you work at a vendor, for example, like AWS, Azure, or Google, they're going to have 2 people. They're going to have a sales executive who owns the relationship, and they're going to have an architect and potentially some engineers. Now, to be a sales rep, you have to understand your customers' challenges, be able to quantify their business problems, and be able to sell them a solution. So that means understanding how the business operates, understanding the people, processes, and technology in place, understanding the pain points, building an ROI or return on investment capital model to show the organization that whether renting or buying your solution will improve their business performance. And guess what? The architect has to do those same things. Now, I want you to understand this. In most places, a good enterprise architect or a really good cloud architect is actually a director level position. So it's a higher position than in most cases than the sales reps themselves or the account executives. So if you want to begin a lead architect, the kinds of architects that are principal architects that earn $500,000 or more per year, now you have to have more business acumen than the actual sales rep. Because here's the thing. When the architect, and I want to make it clear that I'm talking about a lead architects. I'm not talking about architects that don't focus on transformation. So let's think about the process of a sales rep versus an architect. A sales rep walks in, they take their customers to lunches, dinners, and drinks, and any other place to get to build a relationship and sell them stuff. And in order to do that, we're typically talking about MBA business acumen knowledge or better, regardless of whether the person has a master's in business administration or not. Cloud architect, enterprise architect, we really want the MBA knowledge, master's in business, whether they have an MBA or not, and then some. So now the cloud architect or the enterprise architect, they go to their customer, and I'll tell you the difference in the end. I just want you to understand it. First thing we need to do is talk to the company's executives and figure out what's the vision for their business 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and 90 days from now, everywhere in between. Then we need to learn how their business operates and build their business architecture, map out the business processes, map out the value streams, for example, to figure out how the business makes money and all the systems in place. Then we need to design the future business architecture, how we desire it to be. Then we need to do a gap analysis between the current business state and the future business state. Now, the next thing we need to do as an architect, and which the sales reps don't do as much of this, is we now need to evaluate the organization's technology architecture and IT architecture, which are two separate things. What kind of systems do they have in place? How do the systems work? Are they working well? Are they low on CPU, memory, network resources? Are the sales systems in place, the HR systems in place, the finance systems in place? Do the systems support a good customer experience? And again, we've got to baseline the current technology, determine the future technology state that's going to support the business architecture. And then from there, what are we going to have to do? We determine the gap between the current technology architecture and the future technology architecture that supports the business architecture. And then along the way, no matter whether we're a sales rep or whether we are an account executive, the next thing that we need to do is as follows. We need to start getting the stakeholders involved, building a governance structure involved. And this is really there for the architect and the account executive. Now, here's the difference. The account executive is paid, well, we're both paid base commissions, but the account executive has got a lower base salary and a lot bigger commissions. And because of that, the account executive in most cases will sadly sell everything, anything to get a commission. Now, a really good account executive will not sell things that don't work in their customer's best interest, but account executives, because they get paid to sell, statistically speaking, will just sell anything. By comparison, the architect is supposed to be a trusted advisor. While a sales rep may get a $70,000 base salary and $300,000 or $400,000 of commissions, an architect at a good level may get a $200,000 base salary and 30% commissions, for example, or 40% are based upon how good they are. So the architect is designed to be a trusted advisor, to go walk in the customer and not be married to any technology, much more like a strategy consultant or a management consultant. And they should be able to look at the organization and be able to make recommendations in a more vendor-neutral environment. So you can think of the sales rep as a paid hired gun to go out there and attack, and sell. And you can view the architect, who needs the same business acumen skills as the account executive, but they're more neutral. Well, you know, Mr. Client, what are your goals? Okay, you need a 5 nines high availability systems. Well, what we can do is split your load on AWS, Azure, and Google. By doing so, you can survive 1 or 2 cloud provider failures and still be up and running, et cetera, et cetera. So very similar. In fact, Mufusar, when I worked as an architect, many times the account executive wouldn't go, and I would actually close the whole deal and tell the account executive, by the way, the deal's closed, go take care of the paperwork. But in most but not all architects can actually do that. But the architects that are the best paid are going to have really good business acumen skills. So the business acumen needed for an elite cloud architect and an account executive are identical, but the way we're compensated is different. And the sales rep really focuses only on selling, where we focus on the design, leading the team of the designers. We focus on leading the team of the engineers that are going to do our proof of concepts, for example. And where the account executive, for the most part, only focuses on the CEO, CFO, CIO, CTO, we architects go in there and we still focus on the executives in the C-suite, but a lot of what we do is keeping the customer's engineers in line and keeping them from saying no. See, the only people that can say yes to adopting an architecture are the executives. Engineers don't have the decision of say, I'm buying this. But the engineers may have the potential, and the customer may have the potential to influence the executives not to buy something. So the cloud architect or solution architect focuses a lot of their time on keeping those engineers happy and feeling good and excited about the architecture. Those are really the two different things, but we are design, present, and sell as architects. And sell is the key. And really the key is this. When you start looking at these architecture jobs, and I'm picking out one for a reason, once you get to these elite levels, you know, here's a principal architect. And what I want to call your attention to is the pay range. So the pay range is $394 to $677 for this principal architect job over there at Google. Note that's almost $300,000 a year. You want to get that extra $300,000? And I know I always did, and I want my clients to. The secret to this is increasing your business acumen and increasing your sales skills. So a really good architect, and I don't know why my cat's iPad is making all kinds of funny AI sounds right now and asking me questions, but you know, Cindy's iPad's cute. I steal her from her when I do this. The rest of the time I play little cat games for her where she attacks fishes and things like that. But I borrow my cat's iPad for when I do these things. But so that's the key. They're very, very similar in roles, but one focuses on just sales, where the architecture is 50% tech and 50% business. So we're much more technical than the account people, and they're more salesy. They'll be at 2 o'clock in the morning taking somebody to an interesting kind of club to close the business, where we're a little less likely to do that, but we still do a lot of client entertaining as a good architect.
From Kenneth, insightful point of view. So we should be saying system architect or infra architect when talking about someone responsible for designing hard aspects of technology offers on-prem or cloud?
Well, I don't know what you mean by hard aspects of technology. What does that mean? And I mean this in a respectful way. Are you talking about the networking being hard or the APIs being hard? I don't know what you mean by hard. So I don't really know how to answer that. But yeah, honestly, I don't really know what you're saying.
I think they might be referring to like non-virtualized things. So like a hardware, you know, the wow, my brain's drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, so and that's the thing, Kenneth. No matter where we're at, we're still dealing with virtualization. So let's say we're an infrastructure architect and we're working with an organization in the data center. They're going to have servers, right? They're going to have a virtualization abstraction layer on it. It's either going to be VMware, or it's going to be the Linux KVM, or it's going to be an OpenStack control plane for an OpenStack cloud or a Nutanix cloud. Same thing with the router. You know, when I started with routers, they were single routers, but then we developed virtual routing and forwarding instances in the router. So for the last 20 years, whether we're on-prem or on cloud, it's all hyper-converged. I mean, there's not much difference between a modern data center and a cloud provider. Same servers, same storage area networks, same load balancers at the physical layer, same cabling, same fiber optics, same everything. The only difference is whose abstraction layer is there. So, you know, kind of keep this in the back of your mind. So, but I don't have a lot of hardware generally with respect to your comment salute being exclusive. So no. So if you work for Dell, they'll have a solution architect that sells Dell solutions. As I mentioned, Cisco has solutions architect that sells Cisco stuff. NVIDIA has solutions architect that design, present, and sell NVIDIA stuff. So solution architect is only responsible for a single company and a single company solutions. But I hate the term solution architect because, you know, I've seen solution architects make subs at a sub shop or sandwiches. I've seen solution architects sell paint. I've seen solution architects sell cell phones. So a solution architect is what we call a garbage bag term that can mean literally anything, but it typically means you work for a single vendor and you design, present, and sell their stuff.
Right. So now with this clarification, here's the original question that he had. So,
okay.
So we should be saying system architect or infrastructure architect when we're trying to differentiate against this.
Not really, because in enterprise.
So what are we calling something that doesn't deal with just Dell stuff, or just Cisco stuff?
Well, it depends what they're doing. So Kenneth, if you're focusing only on the network and that's all you do, you're a network architect. If you focus only on the security, you're a security architect, regardless of whose security gear you focus on. If you focus on applications and how they're going to be designed and integrated with each other, you're an application architect. So it's all based upon what you're designing. If you focus on the entire global thing, you're an enterprise architect. You want to focus on the AI, the designs of a company, you're an AI architect. So the key is, being specific with what the person has designed. The cloud architect is a generic architect, much like an enterprise architect, because what is the cloud? It's a network and a data center that's been virtualized. So cloud architect will do networking. A cloud architect will do servers and server virtualization. So now it's really about the specificity. And unfortunately, in architecture, most people don't even understand it, and they confuse it with engineering. So they get very funny. But your focus determines what you're going to be. I spent lots of years as a network architect. You know what I designed? How the network would improve business performance. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. All architecture is system design. I remember when Chris and I were speaking with the principal architect at Microsoft, and he was in the application department, and it was kind of hilarious. And he said, "Well, every architect we speak to says the only thing we never do as architects is touch the tech. We save that for the engineers. We design it, present it, and sell it." Hope I answered your question, Kenneth, and I'm happy to add a lot more context.
From Jamel, what's the difference between a principal architect and a senior architect?
A major difference. So Jamel, it's very common for me to get someone their first cloud architect job as a senior architect. That means somebody that knows what they're doing. So here's the levels. There's a associate architect, which is a trainee position. This person doesn't even know what they don't know yet. They get hired, they get paid $70,000 to $100,000 a year, and they get trained by the company. That's an associate architect. A regular architect, basically speaking, generally is brand new. They've graduated a trainee program. They know very little. A senior architect knows something. They often know what to do. And once you reach the point of principal architect, you really are good. A principal architect, and I can give you some examples of principal architect pay, is someone that's solid. I was a principal architect within 2 years. And the reason I was a principal architect in 2 years was I asked the VPs of architecture, what do you want in the perfect architect? They gave me a list, which, by the way, you can find that exact list in the free download on how to get your first cloud architect job. It's in that list, and it's free to you. That's somebody that's made it. Principal architects typically are director or VP level positions, and it's somebody that really knows what the heck they're doing. Now, when it comes to principal architect, there's 2 ways to get there. Either you become an expert on a certain type of technology. The expert at designing end-to-end multi-cloud security could be a principal architect, the expert. Or, more often than not, if you want to really get the best job, what we're talking about is as follows. We're talking about someone that develops deep business acumen, like me. And when you have that level of deep business acumen, you focus on more strategic projects. Your company puts you on the billion-dollar projects. I don't work on little mini projects. I work on billion-dollar architectures. And they put you in front of the executives of the organization site, and you get paid a lot more. Average principal architect is $508,000 a year at Google, with a $300,000 pay range between the top and the bottom, $372,000 over there at AWS, with a different range of $291,000 to $491,000, $379,000 over at Microsoft. These are just printouts from Glassdoor. And with a pay range of $300,000 to $495,000. So, these are serious jobs. And like I said, I was a principal architect in 2 years. Here's the way you become a principal architect. Don't get 10x AWS certified. That's the worst thing you can do to destroy your career. Why? First, it shows somebody you're not even an architect. Because once you start learning DevOps and SysOps, which is maintenance and all these other things, you diverted your focus from architecture. Nobody hires a principal architect because of certifications. In fact, if I see more than 3 certifications on a resume when they apply to me, I won't even waste my time interviewing them. And here's the reason why. I know they've split their focus on multiple people's career as opposed to mastering their career. So you get really good. You have a laser-like focus on whatever it is that's important to you, either network architectures or security architectures. You focus on being the top 1 or 2%. And then you develop your communication skills, your leadership skills, your sales skills, and executive skills. And here's the reason why. No one knows how good you are until you can explain it. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That's how you become a principal architect. You focus on being great, great, great. And that takes laser-like focus, not a diffused effort.
Architect versus chief technical officer from Igor.
So a chief technology officer and a really good architect do the same job, but who they work for is different. The chief technology officer works at my company and helps determine the technologies that actually get to the goal. And that could be IT technologies or somewhere else. The architect designs all the technologies to help assist that business have their better business performance. So they're very different. But the architect is generally a sales role in most organizations. You work for a Deloitte, an Accenture, a KPMG type of environment. You design, present, and sell a solution, and then it gets given to somebody else to build it. The chief technology officer typically would work, say, at Go Cloud Careers. And they'd stay up to date, focusing on new technologies that we could potentially use. And when we needed a system design, they would work with the architects to actually design the systems. Very similar roles. In fact, it's extremely common for you to see architects, good architects, become chief information officers or chief technology officers later. Very, very similar. Hope I answered your question there.
Back to Kenneth. Aha, same as Igor's question, chief information or chief technical officer?
Well, all in all, I'd rather see you become a CIO, but it depends. In the old world, you had a CTO that might report to the CEO, but in today's world, it's more often that the CIO works for the CEO and sets the IT strategy for the organization, and the CTO often works for the CIO. Generally speaking, CIO is more business-oriented, and the more business-oriented you are, the more you earn. And the chief technology officer is a little more of a technical position. Either one of these are C-level roles, and they're fantastic.
From Victor William, do you train cloud engineers as well?
Victor, we do not train any engineering careers, and I'll tell you why we strongly suggest not going down this path. We had a wonderful cloud engineering program, Victor. But I want you to really understand why we no longer train cloud engineers. We had people trying to sign up every day, and we still decided to stop selling this program, and here's why. Artificial intelligence can do the cloud engineer's job, and we feel that 80% of cloud engineers will be out of a job within 7 years. And we don't want to train people for what we consider to be a dying career. Artificial intelligence can never do the architect's job. The architect has to meet with clients. It has to ask them about their business goals, their business pain points. The architect then needs to lead a team to design something. The architect needs to sell it back to the customer. The architect needs to manage stakeholders. The architect, for example, needs to sell the solution, present it, and help negotiate a business deal. None of that can actually be done by artificial intelligence. So there's a couple of major problems with cloud engineers, which is why we don't teach them. The first is artificial intelligence can replace them. The second is, after COVID, people got to see that employees can actually work from home. And let's say I have a cloud engineer and they need to write a Python script. Well, first I can write the Python script in 10 seconds with ChatGPT without knowing anything. And I'm not going to pay somebody to do it. But let's just say, for example, I was going to pay someone. It doesn't matter if my cloud engineer is in California, Chicago, Cambodia, the Cayman Islands, Cameroon, or Cape Town, South Africa. But here's what does matter. The average house in San Francisco is $1.49 million a year. And in order to have a home in San Francisco, the average person needs to earn $425,000 per year. Now, by comparison, somebody might be able to buy a home for $24,000 a year in Cameroon, or for $24,000 in Cameroon. Therefore, the money that we spend in somebody in California doesn't go very far. So an organization may have to pay a lot more. So with engineers, since it doesn't matter where they live, where they work, where they code, where they configure, organizations typically have the architects design them. And if you go see a Big Four consulting firm, here's what you're going to see. They're going to use people in the US, the UK, or Canada to design, present, and sell the solution. And they're going to have their people that are going to do the implementation in India, Pakistan, Africa, someplace where they're going to find a really good person with a great degree of motivation that's at a much lower cost because the lower cost of living. And now after COVID, with labor shortages in the US and all the quiet quitting in the US and employers having a hard time getting employees to work in the US, they're not even going to bother trying to hire people in the US for engineering positions. So the way I see engineering positions is AI will replace them and the rest will get outsourced to lower cost parts of the world. And we don't want to ever train someone and take their money in a career that we don't feel will have a future. So we don't train cloud engineers for that reason. Now, if you desire to be a cloud engineer, Victor, I want you to train to be what I like to call a distinguished engineer. And a distinguished engineer has lots of leadership skills, lots of sales skills, lots of customer-facing skills, lots of business acumen, lots of emotional intelligence, all those wonderful things. And here's the reason why. That way, when organizations say we don't need any more cloud engineers, they can move into roles where they're having more consulting and bigger opportunities. But that's why we don't train cloud engineers. We do not see a major future in software development, cloud engineering, or DevOps. We really caution people about thinking about those careers in today's world. Now, when I was younger and the tech didn't work, it was all about how valuable you are. But now the tech works as well, and it's much easier to configure these things. One DevOps engineer can replace 10 cloud engineers in a deployment perspective. And it doesn't matter where my DevOps engineer is. So we work really hard to recommend against engineering careers in today's world. Not that we don't love engineers. I love engineers. They take my blueprints and turn them to reality. But I'm concerned about people's future, not just where they started.
Right. And Victor's got a good follow-up question here. What's the difference between a technical architect and a cloud engineer?
Good question.
A technical architect is really an engineer. A technical architect has nothing to do with engineering whatsoever. A technical architect is a cross between an engineer and an architect in that they do system design, but the technical architect might actually build it. So a technical architect is when you have an engineer and they're really great and you want to give them more money than they can earn as an engineer, but they don't have the business skills to be a cloud architect or an enterprise architect. They don't have the leadership skills, or they don't have the desire to be a traditional architect. You make them a technical architect. And that way you can pay them $180,000 to $200,000 as a cloud to be a technical architect. Now they'll never earn the $500,000 plus of a good principal architect or an enterprise architect at that level with good business acumen. But that's the way you take your engineers and you give them something better if you really love them for what they do. And it's a great, great, great question.
From Bobara, I have a background in pharma marketing and sales and now into cloud. I would like to be a cloud architect. Am I working on my certification of, I'm assuming it's AWS Solutions Architect. How can I work with the two?
Okay, so Barbara, here's the good news. Your background in pharmaceutical sales and marketing is very helpful if, and I don't know what you mean by pharmaceutical sales and marketing. These are sales or marketing. I'm going to work on the assumption you're a drug rep because they like to confuse the two, but you could actually be working in marketing, which is determining the product positioning, the product pricing, the promotion strategy, where sales is the person that goes and visits the doctor's office, and they used to come and visit me. They'd bring me free lunch, and they'd say, Mike, I want you to prescribe this Lipitor prescription. And I'd say, I've got lots of statins. Tell me why atorvastatin is better than Crestor. And they'd say, well, wait, they give me this, and then they would get paid based upon how many prescriptions I would write with the product. Being able to walk into an organization, hear somebody's questions, and sell it to them, Barbara, that is awesome. And that's going to help you. Now, I'm going to tell you that no certification will teach you anything about being an architect. Zero. You will learn nothing about the solution architect career from an AWS solutions architect professional or an Azure solutions architect network. Zero. And here's the reason. Architecture is about learning how to interact with the client, finding out their business goals, their business pain points, and their business strategies. Finding out how their business operates, how they want it to operate, and developing a strategic plan. And then coming up with the people, the processes, and technologies for the solution design. Now, Barbara, I want you to really understand what the doctor's job was, because that's how I learned how to be an architect. You learn how to diagnose the patient. Now, all the solution architect certification is here's the name of a service and here's how to configure that service. That would be like training a doctor to say, here, you got this blue pill. Go prescribe this blue pill for everything. But it's meaningless. So what's missing in the solution architect certifications is teaching you how to find the customer's technology, how the technology works, and how you would actually design it. So make sure you got architecture training somewhere. We have a cloud architect career development program. We get people hired almost every day, but you're going to need architecture training. 2% of it will be in the architecture training. Now, the pharmaceutical sales that you're doing is probably 25 to 30% of what you actually need right there. So there you go. You're probably a third of the way there from your pharmaceutical sales background because there's so much design, presentations, and so on. But you are going to have to learn the network and the data center and every component of them in order to be an architect. And here's why. You can't design what you don't understand. And if you take an AWS certification, what it really does is it teaches you how to configure AWS things, which architects don't do. It also will teach you all the stuff you should not use. And here's what I mean. 98% of organizations are multi-cloud. Now, when you take a cloud or solution architect certification, 50% of the stuff they talk about, you can't use multi-cloud. I can't use Elastic Compute Service in multi-cloud because it's proprietary, but I can use Kubernetes. I can't use DynamoDB, Amazon Aurora, or any of those proprietary databases because they don't work in multi-cloud. Now, here's the good news, Barbara. You can go with a much better thing like an Oracle database that works on all clouds and is better because Oracle's got 30 plus years of database development, whereas AWS has got 10. And AWS is in the middle of a million businesses, and Oracle was building databases for 3+ decades. So you're going to be a better process by not doing it. But you got to also know what to use and what not to use. And the certification is here. Everything I give you is good for you, but it might not be. So you have to understand. So you're going to need and download our free Cloud Architect Job Guide and come to our free webinar on Thursday about how to become an architect. You're going to have to understand the underlying technology, like servers, server virtualization, containers, container orchestration, storage area networks, for example. And then you're going to have to learn how to apply these pieces together in a manner that actually improves the customer's business. So I used to say I learned architecture when I learned to practice medicine. Why? I was taught how to interview a client to find the problem. An architect has to learn how to interview the client to find out about their business. The doctor, takes a history. Tell me about yourself. The architect takes the history but asks business and technology questions. The doctor makes a diagnosis. The architect generates a hypothesis. The doctor generates a treatment plan. It's often a prescription or physical therapy. The architect generates a plan, a blueprint of the system design. So basically what you have to learn is to become a doctor, to take it from the pharmaceutical world since you're there, of the technology. And that's what we teach. And I had the best training and preparation in the world before my architecture career. I learned how to practice medicine. And I got to tell you, when I became an architect, I was like, wow, it's the same job, but now I'm using architectural building blocks instead of medications to design there. It's a great question you have.
From Robert, you talk about multi-cloud redundancy. What happens if you use cloud-specific tech like Amazon RDS, DynamoDB, et cetera, or are companies avoiding such tech to stay cloud agnostic?
Well, Robert, two things. One is avoid that tech. If you really care about your customers, avoid anything proprietary. Yeah. Proprietary things block innovation by locking you into a single vendor, and they prevent multi-cloud. Now, two, who do you think is really going to produce something great? Amazon, who's part-time, like 2% of the thing is in the database business, or Oracle, who's been 100% database-oriented practically for 30 years. So don't even put that stuff in your architecture. It's like amateur hour. I don't know if you've ever, like I like knives. I've studied martial arts my entire life, and I like a good knife. They get given to me by my Filipino martial arts instructors from time to time. They send me a beautiful knife. Now I have a Swiss Army knife too. You know what I keep it for? I'm in my car. If I want to peel an apple, I use my Swiss Army knife. You know, if I want to open a beer can, and I don't really drink beer, but if I wanted to, the Swiss Army knife has it. The Swiss Army knife doesn't do anything well, but it does a lot of things. And it's the perfect thing to keep in your emergency kit in case you get stuck in the wilderness. Now, I like a real knife, you know, like Marines carry a Kabar knife. It's a big, heavy piece of steel that's super sharp. You go to the wilderness and you want to chop down a tree, you use a Kabar knife. You have to clean a fish, you use a Kabar knife. You don't use that Swiss Army knife. It's not good enough. So if you want real innovation, use vendor neutral products, products that work across all cloud providers, and it's going to be better anyway. You can't compare an AWS WAF to a Palo Alto firewall. They're not even in the same universe. It's like comparing my beautiful cat Cindy to a lion. I mean, they're both cats, but I don't want my cat Cindy to be in the same room as the lion. The lion will eat her. And because the lion might be 800 pounds, where my cat Cindy's cute, but she's only 7 pounds. So you can think of these cloud proprietary services as like little mini things that lock you into a single cloud. And they become like the Eagles song, the Hotel California. You can check in anytime you like, but you can never leave. So when it comes to multi-cloud, you don't use proprietary. And then you don't have any problems. But if it really matters, don't use these proprietary things anyway, because they're nowhere near as good as the real deal. So I like to go with the best for my customers. But I'm not saying never use proprietary. What if my cat Cindy decided to start her own website, mycatcindy.com, and she had photos of her? Well, it might be cheap to just use AWS WAF because, you know, Cindy the cat's not going to need serious security services. I could use an Amazon RDS database because, you know, Cindy the cat's website doesn't need to be in multiple clouds. It's just photos of Cindy. But if it really matters, you're going to go multi-cloud. 98% of organizations are multi-cloud. And 50% of that stuff they talk about in a certification, like all these proprietary databases, don't work multi-cloud. So set your customers up right and try to avoid them unless you have no choice, or unless it's in their best interest, which in most cases it won't be.
Back to Kenneth. In your experience, do you have CIOs competing or chief information officers competing with the principal architects for that final authority on design decisions?
No, never. The principal architects consult to the CIOs. And ultimately, the principal architect typically works for a provider and has to sell it to the CIO, the CEO, the CEFO. So yeah, that's typically. Now, Kenneth, there were times in my career where I have worked with a CIO that was not competent as a CIO, and I took it up with the CEO. And that's generally a career-limiting decision, so I don't recommend doing that. But in this case, it was a major organization. They had been going down a major plan. They had failure after failure after failure, and I felt like as a principal architect, if I didn't have the discussion with the CEO and at least the CIO about things, I was worried. And when I spoke to the CEO in this particular case, they said, Mike, we understand we're actually in the process of replacing the chief information officer. Thank you for caring about us enough to really jump at the sale here to work with us. We like you, we love you, we appreciate it. But no, generally speaking, Kenneth, the CIO is your customer. You're not going to be in competition with them. But there's no ohs or nothings when it comes to technology. And that's why I said, you know, keep that in the back of your mind.
From Matthew, what do you say about a cloud architect with a cloud engineering background? Will that enhance his job?
No. So Matthew, if you worked as a fisherman, do you think that would make you a better airplane pilot? No. Do you think if you worked as a lawyer, it would make you a better doctor? No. Engineering is about building, 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 building. And architecture is about systems designing and presenting and selling. So the answer is no. Now, there are exceptions. And if I have someone that's been an engineer for a long time, the engineers do get more technical depth than an architect. But you have to understand is that a help or a hindrance? And what I mean by this is as following. If we have the architect that used to be an engineer, and the engineer can take all their engineering knowledge, which is wonderful, and stop thinking like an engineer, acting like an engineer, walking and talking like an engineer, and go on to their new career, then yes, it's beneficial. But Matthew, after taking engineers and turning them into cloud architects and taking people that have never worked in tech and turning them into cloud architects, it's often easier for me to get someone that's never been an engineer hired as an architect than it is someone with engineering background. It shouldn't be, but it is. And here's the reason why. I had a 6-month stint in engineering before I became an architect. I was a senior engineer, and 6 months later, I was a lead architect. I didn't realize that I couldn't think like an engineer in my architect job. I was still focused on the tech because when I was a network engineer, that's what we do, focused on the tech. And when I first took my architect job, I tried so hard to not touch the tech, but there was a problem with BGP, and the Technical Assistance Center couldn't figure it out. The engineers couldn't figure it out. I was an expert on BGP, so I did it. And in the process of touching the tech, I lost focus of the big picture. I almost got fired. It was 25 years ago. And that's when I learned the engineering and architecture are at odds with each other. The engineer focuses on the tech. The architect focuses on the transformation. Now, if someone can be an engineer, move on to an architect, and stop thinking about the tech and you realize the tech is a tool for transformation as opposed to their job, now that can make them better. But really, here's the thing. There's no specific set of skills that make somebody better or not. What is the ultimate goal of the architect? Improving their customer's business performance. I'm going to say that again. The goal of the architect is, how do I improve my customer's business performance? So if I have two people, a better engineer and a better business person, and I'm trying to increase sales of a global retailer, and my architect has better business skills and my engineer has better tech skills, the architect can drive more transformation than the engineer. And the architect's going to be leading engineers anyway and working with engineers that are the technical experts. So generally speaking, it's fine if someone's an engineer, becomes an architect, and only focuses on architecture of the future and doesn't look back. But if the engineer loves engineering and they love the technology, you can see them as you can see them when they get architecture jobs. They get an architect job and they get fired or laid off 6 months later, because and then you find them as a software developer or back as an engineer, and here's why. They love the tech. And when they become an architect and they don't touch the tech, and they're in the boardroom, and they're entertaining clients, and they're playing golf with clients, and they're mapping out business processes, and they're selling things, and they're writing thought leadership documents, those engineers that love engineering get miserable. I know you want to become an architect one day, Matthew. So the key is I'd strongly recommend staying away, really focusing on architecture. Now, I've got lots of people that were cloud engineers that I retrained to be an architect, and it takes me about 8 to 12 months to do it. And I've got lots of people that worked as waiters and waitresses and mental health techs that I've gotten hired as an architect, and it takes me about 8 to 12 months to do it. So it doesn't matter. But I like the engineering background if someone can move on and use it as a stepping stone and not look back. If the person loves the tech and they keep thinking of the tech, then it actually handicaps the architect moving forward, because the architect focuses on the business and the engineer focuses on the tech. And if the engineer can't get out of focusing on the tech, they become a horrible architect, but a great engineer. And we have to prepare for the job at hand. The architect's job is designing, presenting, and selling solutions to improve business performance. The engineer's job is to build it and make it work. Two totally different goals. Next question, please.
Okay, from All Right. I'm considering postgraduate cloud studies in Azure, specifically data engineering and BI or Google Cloud Platform, infrastructure, network security, Kubernetes. Should I focus on both or specialize in one platform and field?
Well, first, All Right, I advise you strongly not to do any master's degrees in technology whatsoever. If you want to improve your career, get a master's in business administration. You will not learn anything of value in any of these technology programs. It'll all be theoretical, academic, and fluff in nature. And in the end, you're going to have to learn it all on your own. So I recommend you get an MBA. Besides, If you go to salary.com and you type the average salary of someone with business acumen, it's $558,000 a year. You can focus on all these tech things in the world, and if there's no business, you're never going to get ahead. So focus on the business. Now, the next thing is, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a data architect? That's fine. I'll tell you, we take data architects and retrain them to be cloud architects every day because they earn far more as cloud architects than data architects. But there is that. Are you interested in infrastructure? Great. Learn infrastructure. Stop worrying about the cloud platforms. Learn the technology. And what I mean by that is it's the same tech everywhere. Imagine trying to learn how to drive a Honda Civic because you got certified in it. And you learned one platform. And now all of a sudden you have to drive a Toyota and you don't know how to drive it because it's not a Honda. Or a Mercedes, or a BMW, or a Volkswagen, or an Audi. You'd be in trouble, right? You learn to drive. If you learn Kubernetes, for real, Kubernetes and all the orchestration and how it works, and you know it for real, it's the same Kubernetes in the VMware data center, in the Red Hat OpenStack environment, in the Azure Kubernetes, Google's Kubernetes, and AWS's Kubernetes. It's the same thing. And the reality is, in a multi-cloud network, you're not going to use anybody's managed Kubernetes service anyway. You're going to create your own, and here's why. Let's say you use AWS Kubernetes service, AKS, and then AWS cloud goes down and half your workloads are in Azure. You're hosed, you're done, you're down. But if you build your own Kubernetes cluster in your data center, your clouds are all up and running. So there's that. Networking is the same. Whether you learn BGP if you really learn BGP, it doesn't matter whether it's on Cisco, if it's on Huawei, if it's on Juniper, if it's on Fortinet, it's the same BGP. So learn the tech and learn it deep. Learn to be able to dissect it, understand it, how all the tech works, how does every message go? And then you can work in anywhere. But the first thing you should focus on is, what do you want to do? But I wouldn't do any postgraduate things in cloud studies. I retrain people with master's degrees in cloud computing all the time. They come to me, they know absolutely zero about it. They've got lots of certifications, but no knowledge. We retrain them and get them hired, and they get great jobs. So now if you give me someone that's got an MBA, and then we teach them how to be an architect, now you're talking. And, I was an architect for 25 years. I can tell you what changed my life. So after being an architect for about 5 years, then I got an MBA. Then I took another $100,000 of leadership training, business acumen training, CXO relevancy training, sales training, executive presence training, and then my career was like that. So don't waste your time on a master's degree in technology. Get something practical that's usable, like an MBA. I have one. Alonzo has one. We trained Alonzo, didn't work on the cloud, got him a job on the cloud, and I begged him to come back because he's like my twin brother. We think and act the same, and I love having him around. And Alonzo, you like watching our people get hired every day, right?
I love it. That is one of the things that gets me up in the morning, is being able to. Over the last week and a half, we have 8 to 10 people who've gotten hired or in the process of negotiating how they're going to move into that particular role, and it's just so invigorating when you see the full life cycle of them. When you first talk to them, they don't know anything about Go Cloud Careers, let alone becoming a cloud architect. Watch them matriculate, get the skills, the competency, the ability to communicate, CXO relevancy, and everything else into those roles. It is a rewarding experience to say that I was able to help and be a part of that process. So it's awesome.
I love that too.
So from Victor, what is your advice from someone who is currently a mental health support worker and wants to transition to cloud architect career?
My advice is you take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. It's a single one-stop shop to get you there. Alternatively, you could do what I did. Now, what I did cost me over $300,000, and I became a network expert. Then I became a data center expert. And then I went and got an MBA, and then I took an additional $100,000 of leadership training, et cetera, after that. That's what I did. But our Cloud Architect Career Development Program will get you there. And it'll do it right now for 3 days pay for the average graduate. But I'd like you to come to the webinar. We have a webinar on Thursday, and on this webinar, we will spend 30 minutes telling you exactly what is the Cloud Architect career, and we will give you a list of every single thing you need to learn to become an incredible cloud architect. Literally everything, every protocol, every area of knowledge base that you need to know will give you the full list. And then you can do it on your own or with us. Now, granted, it'll be a lot cheaper with us than on your own, but all I care, Victor, is that you get hired. And you're not going to be alone. Jennifer Ema was a mental health tech, and now we got her hired as a solutions architect, cloud architect over at JP Morgan Chase. While we're at it, we also got Daniel Boso hired at JP Morgan Chase. He was a high school dropout who was selling, I think it was shoes at Nordstrom in his last job, who's also there. We got Wallace Agana, who was a sales rep hired at JP Morgan Chase as an enterprise architect. We also got Praveen hired over there. He came to us as a big data architect, turned into a cloud architect. But the point is, it doesn't matter your background. We can deal with people like Coyote, or Jordan Kitko, or Ivan Tamba that were hired by AWS, and they were college students, all three of them. One worked as a waiter, one was a college student, but they're working for AWS. They could be geologists like Jeffrey West, who we got hired at Kalian, for example. They could be like Noah Parker, who was a social worker who just got him his first cloud architect job. They could be people like Balwinder, who we got hired at Microsoft, who was a stay-at-home mom before she worked with us. Your background doesn't matter. Your competency is everything. Your training is everything. And how you build your brand is everything. So yeah, Victor, it's a great, great, great career. And I love the fact that you come from a mental health background, because that means you've got to have some degree of emotional intelligence to succeed in that career. I know when I was younger and I worked in the one-to-one environment in mental hospitals, that's one of the jobs that I had while I was paying my way through the university. I was a paramedic. I did mental health one-to-ones, and let me tell you, I get it. And the key to being a mental health support worker is making sure that you don't get attacked by people. And part of that's your soft skills and emotional intelligence, and they are very critical skills for this job. And you'll have a lot of good lessons from that. In many cases, better lessons than if you came from tech. Alonzo, what's it been like watching our mental health workers and our psychologists and people go through the program?
It's exhilarating. I mean, I've seen people from multiple backgrounds, especially mental health support, all the way from on the other sphere of effort when it comes to landscaping. The list goes on and on with all the diverse folks who have started off all over the world with their different abilities to do the job and use that foundationally to become cloud architects. So it's just awesome to see. And I know you can too, Victor. Just a lot of people, and this is why it's important to understand that you don't need a technological master's graduate degree. You need to be able to understand how to transfer your present skills into that new role, and that requires the ability to understand what that tech is, what it does, when will you use it, and so forth. So it's very important to hone your communication skills, be able to tell that story about how you started here from there, and it's equivalent to how you're going to use this technology, convert it into architectural and business transformative benefits for these organizations. Tell your story, and you're going to be able to apply it here, especially with business leaders who are relying on you to design multi-million-dollar architecture with a team of folks who do things just like you. From Kenneth, can an organization make a strategic decision to go single cloud and trade off the latest and the greatest for simplicity of the overall architecture? This is assuming their use case fits approximately with that of the single cloud service provider has to offer.
Kenneth, is absolutely. As long as technology is not important to the organization and its uptime, availability, and reliability, sure, they can use a single cloud provider. But when someone does, they have to understand they will have outages. Is anybody going to die from the outages? How much will the outages affect business operations? How much financial losses will occur? Mm-hmm. So sure, we can design an architecture that doesn't need super high availability. Lots of organizations don't. If I was going to architect a website for my cat Cindy, I'd probably stick it all on the Azure cloud, right then and there, the whole thing on a single cloud, because it doesn't matter if my cat Cindy's website would go down. Now, if I was going to design a system for a bank, I would never be crazy enough to put it on a single cloud. If I was going to design it for a hospital, I'd never be nuts enough to put it on a single cloud. But if it doesn't matter and it's not that important, use a single cloud, absolutely. So we have to think about it as the reliability. You don't send a soldier out there into battle with a single weapon, a single rifle. You give them a backup, which is their pistol, because the rifle can and will fail and they need something. When it comes to designing systems that matter, we have to work with this adage. 1 is none, 2 is 1, and 3 is greater than 2. So if it doesn't matter, stick it in a single cloud. If it does matter, but the organization's willing to say, look, we can just be out it and we don't care, again, you can use a single cloud. But if it really matters and it's mission critical, don't use a single cloud. But if their use case fits in a single cloud, sure, you can stick it in a single cloud. Just advise them that it will go down. And when it goes down, you told them ahead of time why it's going to go down. But yeah, you can do it. Absolutely. That's a really solid question, actually. And here's the thing, Kenneth, every architecture is based upon the customer's needs. If they're not mission critical needs, make it simple.
Okay, we're ready for the next question. Okay, from Babar, is there training that I can be on Cloud Solutions Architect to get me into the cloud?
Yeah. Our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We get people hired every single day. We have graduates working at AWS, at Azure, at Google, at IBM, at Cisco, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, JP Morgan Chase Bank, British Broadcasting Company, Callian, and many, many other organizations. But I only gave you the really elite ones of the bunch. But we've got students working absolutely everywhere. It takes between 6 and 12 months to get through our program. And graduation for us is not when some silly arbitrary time, it's the day you're hired. And therefore, almost all of our students that do all the work, assuming they don't quit, will be hired as a cloud architect because we don't quit on them. They stay on our course until they are hired.
And quite honestly, and often, sometimes we have to share and underscore the program works if you do. We give you everything, and I do mean everything, that you need to get to transitioning over to becoming a cloud architect in the quickest, most direct way with all the resources you need and not the things that you don't. However, we can only provide you a direction to where that water is. It is up to you to follow us, drink that water, get edified, and transition into the role. So from King Leo 92, what's the difference between the Cloud Architect Development Program versus the Cloud Elite Program in terms of services provided?
That's a really great question. So the Cloud Architect Career Development Program is our training to turn someone into a cloud architect and get them hired. We've got students getting hired in North America, South America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific, and Australia. We've got students working everywhere. The Elite Architect Program is that Cloud Architect Career Development Program, plus our Tech Interview Mastery Program and our Business Acumen Program called the Tech Leadership Program. By combining the three, we can prepare you for much bigger roles, future CIO roles, for example, principal architect roles. We're also training your salary. Now, if you notice, when I showed you these jobs over here, and I showed you this principal architect job, and this one's at Microsoft, and I told you the range was $300 to $495. What determines whether you get paid $300 or $495? It's the following. Your interview determines your base salary. So this program includes our, really personal coached interview training program. And by doing so, we can teach you how to get a lot more on your earnings. There's also a professional branding component to this, and a heavy-duty negotiation training for your salary, as well as negotiation in general. Now, we also have that business acumen program. We have PhD business professors coming in here to teach you business. We've got executives and VPs from tech companies coming in this program, and it's really there. So the Elite program is a combination of our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, our Elite Architect Program, which is the small batch training for the business skills, and our Tech Interview Mastery Program, and our Professional Brand Program, which is not really for sale yet outside of that program. So it's all of those. It includes a substantial discount with the bundle, and it also includes 3 private one-on-one sessions. See, all of our programs offer coaching, but they're group coaching. This has 3 private one-on-one sessions. Normally to get a consult with me or my executive team, it's about $1,200 an hour, and there's a 17-week wait. But if you're in this program, you actually get 3 of those sessions, which would normally be $1,200 an hour, and they're included. So, it's a major discount of more than 50% when you consider bundling them all together with what you're actually receiving. But either one will get you a job. It's just the Elite Architect program will not only get you hired, we're focused more on what 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, and we're focused more on the interview and helping you out, eke out an extra $50,000 or $100,000 in your first architect job. And believe me, I showed you 3 jobs that have $200,000 to $300,000 of training, and they're there. And yes, we have a payment plan for our Elite Architect program as well. And you will do wonderful in it, King Leo. Someone from my team pop a link to the Elite Architect program. Chris, we can go to the next one. Or Tyrone.
From Kenneth, I am tempted to ask how old you are, Mike. Heavily inspiring.
Well, Kenneth, I'll tell you this. I retired when I was 34 years old from my job as being an architect. I no longer needed to work at that point. Now, when I retired, I then started heavily focusing on coaching people. First, I did it as a volunteer for a couple of years because I didn't need to work and I thought it was cool. Then I had too much demand for my services, so I charged for private one-on-one sessions. And then ultimately what happened was about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was asked to train someone for the best career. It was a friend's son. His name was Nathan. He's a really bright kid, one of the smartest young men I've ever met in my entire life. And his father said to me, "Can you teach my son how to get the best jobs in the world?" And I said, "I would love to." What I did is I bought him the 3 top-selling certification courses on AWS, and I told him that I would focus on Fridays 2 to 4 hours with him, really helping him get his job. After 3 days, this kid called me, and he's a really, I shouldn't call him a kid because he's an adult now and he's got a great job now. He called me and he said, "Mike," he said, "I configured an EC2 instance in an S3 bucket. What is it?" And, I couldn't imagine the training would actually teach you the name of a service and how to configure it without explaining it to him. So I said, Nathan, here's the thing. I'm going to go watch these courses I bought you. And I said, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either I'm going to find out, which is what I think is really, that you watch these courses and you were too lazy to pay attention to them, because nobody would be crazy enough to make training without explaining to you the underlying technology. Or 2 is I'm going to start a company right now, and you and I are going to write a book together and give it away for free on passing the AWS exam and explaining it. Well, I watched these courses in horror, and literally speaking, nobody could even tell me that an EC2 instance was a virtual machine. Now, I knew what a virtual machine was, but there was no explanations of what a hypervisor was, how the memory management was. And I knew the only way that those ridiculous courses, if you even want to call them a course, would help is if somebody had already been an architect with 25 years experience to get them hired. So we created our own, and every single day at this point, or almost every day, we've got somebody hired. But I've been spending over 20 years helping people get their first jobs. And, here's the key. When you're an architect, you can pretty much do anything you want. We are not engineers. We get paid 2 to 10 times more than an engineer, which enabled me to retire when I was 34 and do what I love. I love helping people get hired. I absolutely love it. I grew up extremely poor. I worked 3 jobs to pay for college. And when I got my first tech job, it changed my life. When I got my first architect job, it changed my life. And then when I became an architect for real, an enterprise architect at the director level at a big tech company, I got to really influence things, help my customers, and it was the best thing you possibly have been describing. So I love it. I think it's the best career, and I recommend it for anyone. And that's why I created the training that we train, for these reasons. My education cost over $300,000. I know Alonzo's got a $150,000 MBA. So does Chris. And that's really what it took for me to be great. But because I grew up with absolutely nothing, and I had to work 3 jobs just to get through school, and 90% of what I learned in school was fluff, and 10% of it is what I used. And then I had to take $100,000 of leadership training afterwards to get there. That's why we created this program. It offers 100% of everything you need and nothing you don't. And that's why we're able to get people jobs in 8 months of training for $2,500 of training tuition, which is like nothing, that pay as much as a physician or an attorney that spend 10 years in school and take on $500,000 of debt. And they still earn less than many of our graduates. I had a graduate 2 weeks ago. I thought it was a $404,000 job, but they actually came in with a better offer. When it was finalized, it was a $409,000 job. That's a person that took my basic $2,500 program. They were an engineer. We tripled their salary by teaching them the right skills. And I want to do that for all of you that are here. I want to truly help every one of you have elite technology careers and be incredibly successful. So you can retire at 34, retire at 44, do whatever you like, and love every day of your career.
From King Leo again, do you have a 6-month payment plan for the elite program as well? I would love to start off with the elite program.
King Leo, we have a 6-month payment plan for the elite program. There's also some options with Klarna and PayPal financing as well. But the reality is, and I'd love you to start off with the elite program. It's the best program we have. But even if you started off with the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, we would allow you to upgrade and just pay the difference between the courses. Because we're not about taking people's money. We're about changing their life. And if somebody buys a $2,500 architect program, which is part of our $7,500 program, we would just credit you whatever this $2,500 that you paid for it to that bigger program, because we're really about changing lives, not making money. But the elite program is great. We do have 6-month payment options. And I can tell you it would do wonders for you. But the key for you is to just get started and start building your career. If you have any other questions, please let us know. Because I really want to assist you with your questions. I want to assist you building your career. And I want you to really have access to the right things, because I don't want you to make mistakes. Believe me, mistakes cost time, effort, and money. The average cloud architect, average, earns $800 a day. A good cloud architect can earn 2 to 3 times more than that. Every day that you're not working is costing you $800. The average cloud architect earns $16,000 a month. And I'd rather spend some time guiding you to get to your goals than to see you lose 2 years of your life. Most of the people that came to us already took somebody else's boot camp. They have already gotten all these certifications. They don't know anything other than how to pass in a multiple choice exam. And kind of keep that in the back of your mind. We are about changing lives.
From Robert, have you seen scenarios where a company just uses cloud as a cost-cutting solution to get rid of the on-prem costs, and how did that go?
Robert, I'm going to make it very clear. The cloud is not cheaper. Almost nobody's going to save money on the cloud. They're going to spend more money on the cloud. And that's why you hear about cloud repatriation. I want you to understand what the cloud really is. It's renting space in somebody else's network and data center. And while the cloud providers do provide what's called economies of scale, meaning they can buy stuff cheaper than you and I could, they're what we call it hyperscale. And once you reach hyperscale, you actually become inefficient. So let's talk about what the cloud is and the cloud isn't. The cloud is more expensive. I'm going to say it again. The cloud is more expensive. And in case you don't know, the cloud is much more expensive. But the cloud is very agile and it's very scalable. Now, agility and scalability in business can mean billions of dollars of increased earnings. So the key is to help organizations leverage the cloud. Now, some of that as a cloud architect is helping your organization save money by building a private cloud or a hybrid cloud and using the cloud for what it's good at, unlimited scalability and agility. So anybody that's tried to tell their customers they're going to save them money on the cloud failed. The cloud providers told people the cloud is cheaper. The cloud is not cheaper. I'll give you an example. You can buy a $300,000 server from Dell right now. You can smack the OpenStack cloud software on it or KVM and virtualize it and create your virtual machines. It costs you 300 grand. You can put 256 physical cores in the server, about 6 terabytes of DRAM, and about 72 terabytes of NVMe storage, which you can have about 19 million IOPS in that. Now, 19 million IOPS on the cloud is going to cost you 10 million a month. Just to get to the same level of disk performance you can get on that $300,000 server from Dell. Just the disk performance. But we actually priced it out recently for a client because they said, Mike, private cloud or public cloud? And I said, what do you need? And they said, what do you mean, what do I need? I said, we need to know what your usage patterns are. Are these systems going to run? Are they high capacity, low capacity, going to scale and scale out, or consistent? The client said it was consistent. It was $320,000 from Dell at retail. Now, nobody pays retail. And it was almost $6 million at AWS to run the same servers that we could do on this one server. It's not saving money to go to the cloud. Now, if I need more compute capacity in my data center, and it takes 6 weeks to get compute capacity from Dell, that's a long time. I can spin up a virtual machine in less than 6 seconds on the cloud. That kind of agility is legendary when it comes to business improvement. If I want to do disaster recovery in the cloud, boy, that's beautiful. I can do disaster recovery in the cloud. I can put my web stuff that needs to scale in and scale out and right size on the cloud and keep my other stuff that runs consistently in my data center. Or I can create my own cloud, have auto scaling in and out of my own data center, connect that to multiple clouds. Or I could create a super cloud, or I could create a multi-cloud. I can create an environment where the best cloud for AI right now is Microsoft. We can have a private cloud. We can leverage Microsoft's AI solutions. We can leverage AWS as a backup and Google for additional AI solutions because they've got a lot of experience there. Again, that's digital transformation for our customer. But we're not saving anybody money on the cloud. Anybody that told their clients this, really, really hurt their clients. It's a rent versus buy decision. And that's why architects need business acumen. Because in a certification, they'll tell you it's going to save somebody money. But it might cost them 3 times more to be the cloud. It might still be worth spending 3 times more. Robert, I've had multiple clients that put $1 billion architecture technology solution on. And $1 billion to them was nothing because it was generating many $1 billion in returns. So it's not the cost that we worry about. See, architects aren't accountants. Accountants worry where you spent your pennies. Finance professionals work with organizations to take their money and generate greater returns on investment. Architects are finance people, not accounting. But no, the cloud's not going to save anybody any money. And if you try to tell somebody that is an architect, your name is destroyed. Remember, we're supposed to be trusted advisors. We're supposed to be neutral on technology, and we're supposed to care about our client's best interest. We can't believe the stuff that's taught into a certification. We have to live in the reality land. The reality land is the cloud is the most agile thing out there. It promotes digital transformation like nothing else in the world, but it's not going to be cheaper. We're going to pay for that agility, and it's worth it in many cases. But you have to be able to build the business case, a return on investment capital model to help your client realize is it better in the data center versus the cloud. Before we get to the next question, feel free to ask us questions so we can help you build your career.
King Leo again. How do we go about wanting to work in a particular city or state as a cloud architect in your program once we feel we're ready to get out there?
Well, let's think about this. I'm not going to recommend anybody pick a particular city or state. I'm going to recommend they pick the cloud architect job of their dreams and love their life. Now, if you live in New York City, for example, chances are you can pick out New York City as your standard where you want to live. But what if you were me and you lived in Palm Beach because you liked Palm Beach and you wanted to live in golf land and bird land and beach land? Well, let's face it, there's not a lot of clients that are headquartered in Florida that are going to pay $1 billion for $1 billion architecture. So for me to live in Palm Beach, and I've worked from home for 20 years, what did I do? I traveled. And I traveled a lot. So the real key is getting you the job is easy, but worried about where you work, that's another story. You're now putting in 2 variables. We can get you the skills to easily get you a job. Easily. And we do it every day. But if you're trying to niche yourself down to a particular city, now you got to look for employers that are willing to hire in that city. And that might knock your, depending upon where you're at, that might knock your job opportunities down by 80, 90%. And when you've never worked in tech before and it's your first architect job, and we're one of the few people in the entire world that can deliver those results to get you your first architect job with no experience, you can't be picky about where you live. Because if you try to do that, you'll lose many of the good opportunities you're already going to get. Unless you live in the London Metro, the New York Metro, San Jose, California, Dallas, Richardson / Texas, or Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Unless you're in one of those big metros, which are like the tech capitals, I think you got to be open to many areas that are out there. Just want to be honest.
When you, all right, great answer. Thanks for insight. Okay. But when you think about what you're investing in, what you're going to, and I wouldn't call it necessarily giving up if you have to relocate for one of these positions, you think about what your life skills, your lifestyle is going to convert over to, what your options are, to ability to travel, do and go where you want with the new salary and new financial gain that you'll have. So always consider that all the growth that you have never, or the experiences, the escalation, the increase of your standards never ended with you staying the same or staying in the same location. Now, granted, if you have a family or so forth, that's going to be some conversations for your significant other, but look at the overall opportunities that will put you in that position for a trajectory of $500,000 salary or more. Think about what that means for your family, generational wealth, income, and so forth. So it starts today with you converting your mind over and thinking like a cloud architect and thinking what that all entails and how it's going to transform your life.
Yes, and and if you've got any questions, ask your last questions. Otherwise, our team will get back to it. But I'm going to give you a few minutes and a few things to think about. Things that I want you to think about are as follows. If you want to be great at anything, focus on it. The reason I hate the 10x AWS certified person is they work so hard to destroy their career. When you focus on one thing and you do it well, you're great. When you try to learn 5 different people's careers, and SysOps and DevOps are 2 different careers, totally unrelated to architecture, and development's another career. When you try to learn everything, in effect, you split your focus so much that you end up knowing nothing about anything. And unfortunately, to get a high-paying career, you actually have to be good at something. It's easy. And I've conducted over 6,000 interviews in my tech career. I can find you a jack of all trades that basically has 20,000 certifications each that doesn't know anything. But to find somebody that's really great, it's so rare. And when you find them, you find them. I want to go find a good network architect, and I'm going to say, do you know Python? They're going to laugh at me. I'm going to say, and I'm going to say, what do you know? They say routing and switching. I say wireless? I don't know wireless. I know routing and switching. Okay. How about storage area networks? You know that? No, I know routing and switching. And they focus that. Now, there will be a network architect that focuses on wireless, and they're great at it, but you got to be great at something. The second thing that I want to let you know is it's meaningless how good your tech skills are if you can't explain it. And I want you to understand this. When I interview somebody, they can have the best cloud skills in the world, but if they can't explain it to me, I don't know if they know anything. And why won't I know? I'm not going to ask an architect to go code something. I'm not going to ask them to go build it because they don't do that. I'm going to ask them to explain it to me. That's their job. And if they can't explain it, I don't know what's in their head, and I can't hire somebody if I don't think is competent. 3, your business acumen skills. If you can't help your customer's business get better, you're not an architect. I'm going to say that again. If you can't focus on your customer's business, you're not an architect. Because the whole point of architecture is to improve your customer's business performance, and you don't know business. All you're doing is engineering, and that's fine, but focus on engineering and do that. Next, I want you to think about career longevity. We're now in a world where geography doesn't matter. You can hire anyone anywhere in the world. And the lowest bidder gets hired, or the best gets hired, one of the two. If you want to be always hired, I need you to be the best. But I also need you to have the skills that make people want to work with you. About 20 years ago, when the tech didn't work, I asked employers what they wanted in a technology professional. And do you know what they told us? Someone that can do the job and someone I can tolerate. Do you know what happens when I ask a hiring manager or a chief of technology officer or a chief information officer now, and I talk to them all the time? They say, Mike, the tech's pretty simple now. Cloud computing made everything simple. I need someone that can talk to people, that can lead people, that's emotionally intelligent, that brings out the best in others. That's what they're looking for. Now, when it comes to getting your first job, I want you to know this is a secret. There's no way that an architect with 1 year of experience is going to ever be as good as an architect with 20 years of experience. It's just not going to happen. But what can you do when it's brand new, when you're competing against people with 20 years? Well, here's the things hiring managers care about in a cloud architect interview. First, do you have the skill? So you got to be good when it's your first job, competent enough. The next thing we care about is, can we trust you? How do 99% of job interviews fail? We ask a question we know that the client won't want, and the client lies to us. You can't hire somebody that lies to you, because when somebody lies to you, you can't trust them. Employers are looking for someone that knows what they know and knows what they don't know. Why? Because people that know their limitations don't make mistakes. The next thing employers are looking for: energetic, enthusiastic, passionate people. Well, I'll tell you what. I went and visited a gym the other day, and I saw a bunch of people taking pictures of their body parts and posting it on the internet. I don't know why anybody would do this. I want to hire someone that's excited to work, not someone that's excited about taking pictures of their butt and posting it on Instagram while they're being paid at work. So kind of keep that. That's in the back of your mind. People want people that are focused and excited about the work. We also want what we call energizers. This actually came from Jack Welch over at GE, and all managers are there. An energizer is someone that raises the energy in the room and brings out the best in others. Hiring managers also care about your communication skills. Why? Well, as an architect, if your communication skills are bad, you can't get the customer requirements and the design falls apart and everything fails. But poor communication skills equals conflict on the team. And the managers judge for the poor performance in their team, not one person. So if the communication skills are not good, all elite careers become impossible to get. The last work is team players. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Every hiring manager knows that anything great takes a team. Go together. So employers are looking for team players. And here's the last one. Well, people are out there on TikTok and they're quiet quitting and doing all these other things. Employers want someone that's willing to go above and beyond. So you get the right skills. You show the hiring manager that you're a master on all these things. If you're competing with 1 year experience versus somebody with 10 and 15, you can still get hired. So that's how you do it. Of course, it's also about building the right brand so that people come to you, because if you apply for jobs yourself, you'll get auto-rejected. And our students get requested almost every day to interview. They don't get auto-rejected. And they go talk to the hiring manager first, and then after they're hired, they tell HR, the hiring manager says, fill out a job application. I'm telling HR to hire you, so they don't get rejected. So now you got it. Focus, 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 and you know all the secrets to success. Please download the completely free Get Your First Architect Job Guide. The link is in the description below. Please join us on Thursday for the completely free webinar where we'll teach you exactly how to get your first cloud architect job. It'll be on Zoom. We can have a face-to-face conversation and you can ask your questions live, because in order to help you, really, we need to be able to ask you questions, and we can do it on that platform. And finally, don't live the life that you don't enjoy. If you desire to do something, if you desire a new career, go out and get it. Get the best training and go after your dreams. I used to practice medicine. I know how the game ends for all of us. Don't have any regrets. Love every last minute of your life. I liked medicine. I loved cloud architecture, network architecture, enterprise architecture. I worked in my internal medicine job, but I've never worked a single day in my life in tech. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Lonzo, you have anything else to say before we close?
I couldn't have said it better, Mike. I come from many moons ago. I started off in the marketing field and transitioned through a couple of steps to become a cloud architect, and I love it. I never thought that I would find something that I was passionate about like I did with marketing, creative, and so forth, and being able to work with great intellectual people, different personalities, and more importantly, I love business relationships. I love creating them. I love maintaining them. I love meeting new people and working collaboratively with a lot of people who have the desire to solve problems, especially in the technology space. So it's so rewarding. And, you know, of course, with a really nice salary, it's great. But the rewarding experience of working with people and seeing the look on their faces to say, I did it. I didn't think it was possible. And I'm stepping into a realm I never thought was possible is something that you can't put a price tag on. And we want to help everyone get there. So if you're thinking about it, great. If you're committed, even better. But we know we can help you. We know we can transition you with the right training, with the right ability to make this cloud architecture goal a reality. So we look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you so much. We'll see so many of you on Thursday. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.